and you said it, I admit it, it's fan service. It is anime, tits and ass shaking right there.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time on the channel, hit subscribe right now. The iconic death metal band Massacre is now really back. And I sat down with charismatic frontman Kam Lee to learn all about this comeback. All right, so Kam, it's good to be back, I think. I've seen a lot of content from you in the lead up to this new record. You are clearly very energized. You are very excited about this release.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's a resurgence. It's kind of like, it's kind of finding like a way to properly bring the band back to where it belongs. I can't believe it's 30 years exactly this year since the debut album, and the band's been around longer before 91. The band goes back to 1985, so it feels good. It feels like returning home. I thought it was really ironic too that the band is coming back around the same year that horror movies like Halloween are coming back, and Scream is coming back next year, which is like crazy. And it's like the original cast in Scream. I was like, I saw the trailer, I'm like, holy crap, they got everybody back. Nev Campbell's back. I mean, so I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I guess it's the perfect time for a resurgence. I did it again. And so it all kind of like, it's I don't know, it's the word synchronicity, like it all falls into place in this weird universal crazy messed up way where the earth is completely in chaos right now because of COVID pandemic. I don't know, it's very weird, but it does feel like coming home, kind of, I guess you could say.
I do want to obviously address a few elephants in the room, if you will. Yes, it's been a long time. It's the long-awaited resurgence of the people that are involved in this project. At the same time, you know, there's been a Massacre album 7 years ago as well with a whole different lineup. A lot of people have been part of a version of Massacre throughout the years. Like, you know, is it even possible for you still to keep track of who's right now working with you on this project? Because it's just crazy.
I do. Yeah, I've got, you know, who is what I call the album lineup, who just did Resurgence. And we now have kind of like a live lineup, which is going on right now, which will be performers. I guess the best way to look at it and is there's other bands out there kind of like that I take into light and say, okay, that those guys can do it, then that kind of Massacre should be no problem that Massacre could do it. One of those bands is Dark Funeral. Dark Funeral is always Fenriz and Nocturnum. It's like you see those two guys, they're the key guys in that band, and the band's had different members at different times. So I kind of liken the new Massacre or this version of Massacre in the same way, that the foundation of the band is myself and Mike Borders, who is the original bass player, who ironically is the original reason why I got Massacre in the first place. So like I said about coming home, it literally feels like it's encompassed and come home, regardless of who the other players, the infamous other players that have been in the band before, they're no longer a part of this band. So it's now time to move forward, even though musically we're moving back. Right now we're entering we're still in this time where we don't know what's happening. We don't know what is going to happen because of the world situation. And I said, right now, what's really important, what's key important is having a good album. I don't care like later on, I'll worry about a lineup later. Right now, I have to work with the best musicians that I know that can bring a proper album, a proper Massacre album to the table. Who can I trust to do this? And we were working with individuals before it wasn't working. And I was like, we got pushed into a corner. I was like, man, I've got to definitely work. And my wife was the one that said, why do you keep looking for people outside of the box? You have great musicians, and you've worked with for years. Why don't you go and ask them? Of course, it's always the woman that has that insight. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Why am I trying to find somebody local? Right. Why don't I work with these guys that I've worked with? Rogga, I've worked with for 15 years. And I remember asking Rogga, it was in a Facebook message, and I just, hey, would you mind? And he was like, even before I got finished, as soon as I said Massacre, he was like, he was writing back, yes. He already knew. I was asking. And then when everybody that I asked just all came to the table with a big yes, they were like all ready to do it. There was no like, let me think about it. No, there was automatically like, oh yes, let's do this. Even Scott Fairfax was a added plus that I didn't even consider that he would come and do it. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to come do it. No problem. I have my ideas and what I want to do is for solos and leads. And I was like, this is great. Everybody was really quick and really on board really fast and knew exactly what they asked the right questions and got rid of any preconceived ideas of anything else.
Because you do have the recording lineup. On top of that, there are guests on the album as well. Yes. Based on what you just said, when people came with ideas about solos and add things around, then I'm also interpreting that this is not just your solo project with hired guns, but people actually contributed to the sound.
Yeah, everybody contributed in great ways, and it was actually all kind of you could say an internet roundtable, right? Because everybody was on like Zoom meetings now, and everybody sat down and said, okay, let's do this. Now with the guitar players, and I've always worked like this all my life, going all the way back to when I was in Mantis with Chuck and Rick, going back to 1984. I always let the guitar players write the music, and then we'll sit down and we'll dissect the riffs and go, okay, well maybe this part doesn't really fit, or this intro doesn't fit, or maybe this needs to be extended. Let's extend this part so we can make this part a verse, and let's use this as a pre-chorus and a chorus. A lot of that went down, but it was going so well and so quickly because once everyone asked the question, because both Rogga and Jonny asked right off, what do you want it to sound like? Do you want us to make it sound like Massacre, or do you want it? I went to them, I said, look, you guys are Swedish guitar players, for one. I love Swedish death metal. So don't feel that you have to be put in a box where you have to only play Florida death metal. Right. Incorporate some of that Swedish feel, because I love that myself.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, they were like, okay, we know what we got. And there was some stuff that got scrapped. There was some stuff that was just too out there in left field. Now, I was like, no, that's not going to work. So reel it back in, pull it back in, make it simple. And it was a very easy process. There was nobody. I've worked with guitar players before where you told them, and this is not a heavy riff, and they literally wanted to cry. And there was none of that going on. There was no egos. There was no hurt feelings. Everyone was like, okay, I get what you're saying. That's understandable. Let's change it. Let's do that.
Final question before we only focus really on the new album and everything that's coming next for you. Does that mean that also, everything that had anything to do with Back From Beyond from 7 years ago, is that completely retconned? Or, because we've seen, like, to use another, you used some examples of other bands before, like we've seen a Bruce Dickinson elevate a song from the Blaze era, to a new level with, things like the Klansman, for example, when they play that live these days. Is that something like, I'm just not going to go there at all? In all fairness, Back From Beyond, probably not the best received album that was ever released under the Massacre name, but there's some good stuff on there. So what's your take on that?
My take on that is the same as Promise. I won't touch it. Unfortunately, if there's fans out there that like either one of those albums, I'm not going to discourage those fans from going and listening to those albums. Those albums represent an era and a time. And if you're a fan that happens to enjoy that album and those people on that album or something, if that's what you want, I'm not going to discourage you to not listen to it. But I will say that the Resurgence is more than just the title of this album. It's an attitude. Yeah. So it really goes back to the resurgence of old school death metal. It goes back to the resurgence of Massacre. It goes back to the resurgence of me properly in the band and bringing it full circle to where it belongs. So you have From Beyond, which is the debut album. And then you have Resurgence, which I consider as sort of the side to sides, almost like a sequel, a proper sequel, if you will. Kind of like how Halloween forgets all the other Halloweens and picks up from just the original.
Wait a minute, they're not brother and sister?
No, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so let's focus on the new album. I wonder what the title is of the new album. It's been said a few times here, but as with a lot of times when a legendary band or a legendary lineup or original members come back after a long time, when I hit play for the first time and I had a chance to listen to the full album already, there's always that bit of a skepticism, if you will, before what will happen to this, beautiful nostalgic idea that I have. And you guys kick it off with the Eldritch Prophecy, which I think, and I'm definitely not, my viewers know that I'm not a guy to go like, oh, every person I interview, oh, how amazing is this and how wonderful is that? But from the get-go, you guys just remind everybody what death metal is all about. Before I even go to the meaning of everything and the lyrical concept, when that song came together, did you just know? Because for me, it's also one of the standout tracks on the album. Did you just know, this is our business card? Go hey, we're back.
Yeah, I mean, Rogga wrote that song, and when I remember when he sent it to me, that song is actually one of the ones it didn't get very much changed at all. I think we added the beginning riff back to the end to kind of make it go full circle. But other than that, the structure and the way that it was written is pretty much intact the way Rogga wrote it. And I remember when Rogga wrote it and he told me, because how Rogga and I do things, he'll send us riffs. I won't get anything else. It'll just be guitar riffs, usually to a click track. So you have the click, 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 and the guitar riff comes in. And then I remember when he got that, he said, hey, this is kind of like my salute to Dawn of Eternity. And I said, hey, man, that's the first thing I thought when I heard it. The very first riff, that's exactly how I hear it. And, we heard the ride cymbal the same way. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. And we knew from that point on, because Rogga, like I said, Rogga was the first one I got to start working with the band. We knew that was the key. That was how the album needed to be structured. It needed to be structured like that song can connect to Dawn of Eternity. And then the following song, which is Ruins of Arle, can connect to Cryptic Realms. There's little nuances in those songs, and and when you finally get the lyrics, you get to sit down with the lyrics as well, and compare the lyrics to the new songs to the original debut album. You'll start to see those nuances. You're like, oh, I get it now. I didn't know what he was saying now, but now I see it. And there's all these little interweaving connections.
Double question, maybe specifically when you talk about, because Eldritch is not necessarily a person, or it's not always tied to Lovecraft, but what is the Eldritch Prophecy that you're talking about? But in a bit of a broader concept, this facet, a lot of bands are inspired and influenced by Lovecraft throughout the years. But for you, where does this come from, and where did that passion come from?
Being a misanthrope. Honestly, it is. It's my way to kind of like express my hatred for mankind in a way that when I read Lovecraft, I got that from Lovecraft right away. I was like, hey, there's a guy, I can read his horror fiction, and I'm not like, when I'm reading it, I'm not like saying, oh, I know exactly what the narrator's going through. He's going insane. He's feeling fear. That's not what I'm feeling. I'm saying, I know what these horrible elder gods and things are feeling, and how they look at mankind as being just shit. And they push aside us as because humans think we're the center of the universe and that we're the greatest thing. I've never thought that myself. I've always felt that, man, it's more like the Matrix. Humans are like what, Mr. Smith are in the Matrix saying humans are a virus. We're just, and that's how I think. I mean, so Lovecraft gave me a way to read something as a young teenager, as a preteen, saying, wow, I'm not like crazy. I'm not sitting underneath the piano bench going, oh, I hate the world and I don't know if I'm the only one. But when I start to read Lovecraft, I started to say, hey, there's other people out there that feel this way, and they express it in a sort of in a way that I get and I like, because I love monsters myself, so I get it. And so that for me is kind of like it was a way to express my misanthropy and my hatred of humanity.
Those fans that you're servicing with this new album, they're going to come to your show. There's obviously, it's going to be for you maybe a bit of a tricky exercise to find the balance between all that old classic stuff. And I'm sure that, that you mentioned Mantas before, like, a popularity of that stuff also had its resurgence a few years ago. So I'm sure that people come to your shows with lots of hopes and dreams. On top of that, you've got a whole new album. Are you already trying to puzzle together, what does the ideal set list look like?
Yeah, we've got kind of like right now, I've been working months with a lineup that's going to help us live. Because obviously this is the recording lineup, is not everyone's going to be able to come out live. So I've already knew that going in, and I have a live lineup, and we've been working. So we have a really good set list. Of course, you're condensed when you play festivals. You only get about 45 minutes.
Right.
So I said, let's pick the best songs. Let's pick fan favorites first off, which is like Dawn of Eternity, Cryptic Realms, From Beyond, Biohazard. Those right off the bat, those 4 songs right off the bat, those are fan favorites. Right. Corpse Grinder, always the finisher, the encore, the fan favorite, Corpse Grinder, and that goes all the way back to my death days. There's a couple little secret things I won't mention right now that are going to be in the set list, but then we picked some of the best ones off of the new album Resurgence, and I said, okay, let's pick the best ones. And I went and I talked to all the guys in my band now, and I said, what do you think is a favorite? And everyone was like, Eldritch Prophecy, everyone loves that. I was like, oh well, yeah. And then I said, well, what else? And they said, Whisper in Darkness, man, everyone loves that song. So those 2 right off of Resurgence are definitely going to be in the live set.
Before we wrap it up, I wanted to just, ask about one more legend in his own right that you're now working with. I think you're very happy with what Wes Benscoter did for the artwork. Yes. This guy is now, I would say, the gold standard in the more extreme metal today. He's done some amazing work, and it was just, that's a match made in, well, I was going to say hell, but maybe there's a Lovecraft analogy that works better, but he did a phenomenal job, right? There you go.
A match made in Arkham, or a match made in Miskatonic.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, it was amazing because when it came to that, it was such a cool idea, a cool story too. It's just I knew Wes, and I knew Wes especially from the Autopsy album covers, but a lot of people don't know this about Wes. Wes has also done some art for some horror movies. Some of the re-released horror movies that have come out, they've done some painted artwork. And I remember seeing his artwork there's this horror movie called The Church, which is like Demons 3. And I remember seeing that artwork. I'm like, man, that's real familiar. And then I saw the Autopsy album covers, and I'm like, there's that artist again. And then when it came down to when Nuclear Blast said, who do you want to be the artist? I said, I want this guy right here, Wes Benscoter. And he was really excited that I knew his artwork from the church.
Right.
And he was like, oh, cool. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a big horror fan. That's how I kind of stumbled across you in the beginning. And he's like, well, what are you looking for? And I said, Lovecraft. And he wrote back, yes, real big. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, I've always wanted to do Lovecraft, but I've never had a chance to actually do it. And he said, okay, I have a cool idea. And I think within a couple of days, he sent me a sketch first. And I said, yeah, you're right on it. You're getting on it. And then when he finally sent me the final draft of the artwork, he added so much more in. I was excited. I was like, oh, wow, you added all these other monsters that I didn't even think you were going to add in. And it came out really great. I really think it matched exactly, because it reminds me of those old pulp magazines from back in the 1920s and 30s that you would see these, like, what Lovecraft stories would show up in. And they'd have these crazy covers with all these monsters on the covers. And it totally gave me that feeling that I'm looking at an old pulp magazine or a pulp comic, or back to 1950s, EC comics, horror comics. It gave me that whole vibe.
Kam, I want to thank you so much. I know the fans, that haven't had a chance to listen to the album just yet. I know they're gonna love it. I know they're gonna love it, and everybody's gonna be, counting the days to see you guys take this music on the road. I hope to catch you here in Canada, and thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.